Clara and Marco were artists. They shared a studio. It was bathed in sunlight. Each morning they arrived with the dawn. The scent of oil paints filled the air. It was intoxicating.
I love the feel of the brush in my hand. I pour my emotions onto the canvas.
Marco, on the other hand, was precise. His lines were clean, his strokes deliberate. Yet, despite their differences, a silent understanding bloomed between them. They worked side by side, their easels facing each other. Occasionally their eyes would meet over the tops of their canvases. A smile would flicker, a silent acknowledgement of their shared passion. The studio was their sanctuary. It was a place where words weren't necessary. Their art spoke volumes. Each stroke, each splash of colour whispered a story. The sun streamed through the skylight. It painted the studio in a warm glow. Clara squeezed vibrant colours onto her palette. Excitement bubbled inside her. Today felt different. She picked up a brush, her fingers tingling with anticipation. Dipping it in cerulean blue, she made the first bold stroke. It was a reflection of the emotions swirling within her. Hope, longing, a touch of trepidation. Clara glanced at Marco. He was already lost in his own world. His brow furrowed in concentration. A wave of warmth washed over her. She admired his focus, his dedication. Taking a deep breath, Clara returned to her canvas. The world outside faded away. It was just her, the colours and the whispers of her heart guiding her hand. The studio door creaked open. Marco stepped inside, his presence instantly changing the atmosphere. He smiled at Clara, his eyes crinkling at the corners.
Morning.
Morning.
Marco moved with an easy grace. He set his supplies down and approached her easel. His gaze swept over her work, his expression thoughtful.
You've changed your palette.
Clara nodded, suddenly self-conscious.
I felt drawn to brighter colours today.
Marco chuckled softly.
As am I.
He murmured, gesturing to his own palette, which mirrored her own vibrant hues. Their eyes met, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. It was as if their souls had aligned, their artistic visions merging. The dance of colours had begun. They fell into a rhythm. Hours melted away as they lost themselves in their art. Marco's movements were fluid, his strokes precise. Clara, on the other hand, embraced spontaneity. Her colours swirled and danced on the canvas, yet their styles complemented each other. It was as if they were having a silent conversation. Marco's order grounding Clara's chaos, Clara's vibrancy igniting Marco's restraint.
What do you see?
Marco asked, breaking the silence. He stood behind Clara, his gaze fixed on her canvas.
I'm not sure. It's still whispering to me.
Clara hesitated. She rarely shared her work before it was finished. But with Marco, it felt different. It felt safe.
Listen closely. It has a story to tell.
The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the studio floor. Clara and Marco were lost in their own world. They moved together, their bodies brushing. It sent shivers down Clara's spine.
Marco.
She began, her voice barely a whisper. He stopped painting and turned to her, his gaze questioning.
This feels different.
He stepped closer, their hands almost touching.
Different?
He echoed, his voice low and husky. Clara's breath caught in her throat. She looked into his eyes, seeing the reflection of her own longing.
This connection, it's more than just art, isn't it?
Marco didn't reply. He simply cupped her face in his hands and kissed her. It was a slow, tender kiss. It spoke of unspoken feelings and a love born of shared passions. Clara's heart pounded. She had never felt so seen, so understood. Marco pulled away slightly, his eyes searching hers.
What if we create something together?
The idea took Clara's breath away. To blend their styles, their emotions on a single canvas, it was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. Without a word, she picked up a brush, dipping it in a vibrant crimson. Marco smiled and took the brush from her, adding a stroke of deep indigo. And so it began. Their movements became a dance, their bodies swaying in unison. They laughed, they argued, they whispered words of encouragement. As the sun began to set, they stepped back to admire their work. It was a riot of colour, a tapestry woven from their individual styles and their shared love. It was messy and bold, passionate and raw. It was them.
It's beautiful.
Clara breathed, her eyes shining with unshed tears. Marco wrapped his arms around her, his touch possessive yet tender.
Just like us?
He murmured against her hair. In that moment, surrounded by the whispers of colour and the echoes of their love, Clara knew she had found her forever home.